My elementary school banned tag and Red Rover and hanging upside down for more than 10 seconds. I complained to my mom about it, and my mom scheduled for me to have a meeting with the principal alone to argue for our recess rights. I was really nervous because it was just me and the principal in a meeting room. The principal was really irritated during the meeting and kept cutting my arguments off because I was a fucking 10-year-old and had a lisp and a shaky voice. My high school had a really strict uniform. They made you buy specially made knee socks with the school's initials on them. They cost $6 a pair, and the elastic lasted for about a week. Then you got a detention if your socks sagged at your ankles. You also needed white tennis shoes with blue accents. My sister could only find white at the beginning of the year, and one of the teachers made her color in some of the lines on them with blue pen. Nuns, man. In middle school, I bought some pixie sticks and would eat them throughout the day. Eventually, friends would ask me for them and I'd give them away. Soon, some other kids started buying pixie sticks and selling them for 5.25 cents. Suddenly, a huge pixie stick black market started and kids were constantly haggling in the hallways for pixie sticks. Eventually, the administration banned pixie sticks, and if you were caught with a wrapper, you had an automatic detention, so kids would have to sneak them into school or find creative ways to still get their fix. Take the ink out of pens and put pixie sticks in the middle to pour out of the top. The Great Pixie Stick Prohibition of '02. Back in the 90s, my school banned 311 shirts because they thought it was racist. K being the 11th letter, they thought it was KKK. LOL. They also banned Raven's Revenge. It was a powdered candy they thought could be mistaken for drugs. Girls can't wear bandanas because it symbolizes gangs. We live in town where there hasn't been a murder for over 100 years. It's in Canada. Males and only males are required to tuck in their shirts at school. This started after the Virginia Tech massacre to try to stop people from trying to sneak any sort of gun or weapon. It started in middle school up until I graduated. The schools in the district got numerous complaints not just from the students, but also from the teachers because it was ridiculously hard to enforce. Finally, the year after I graduated high school, they decided it was stupid after all and discontinued the rule. At recess, you weren't allowed to do nothing and sit back with your friends and relax and get away from the school day. You had to be doing something active that was approved by the district. If you didn't want to do any of these things, you had to walk along a yellow line at the edge of the playground the whole time. If you weren't playing by the rules set by the school, then you couldn't play. Foursquare? You can bet you couldn't do anything we all agreed was fair. Tag? Not on the fucking blacktop you won't. This limited us to a third of the actual playground. Soccer? If there aren't 4 people of equal skill, decided on by the PE teacher, on each team, you were not allowed to play. For a while in my old middle school, we couldn't use mechanical pencils because they were a distraction. That lasted for about 3 weeks after everyone got in trouble every day for having them. My school doesn't let us wear mismatched socks because, for some reason, it is apparently some form of a gang sign. They have also banned hoodies, yoga pants, and they are working on getting rid of sweatpants too. I work for the federal government. I don't think I can pick just one. Okay, I'll pick one. Normally, no alcohol is allowed, unless you get a security exemption for an event. We brought wine for a Christmas party, memo and all. We had leftover wine, so we put it in the classified documents room, which was under lock and key with very limited access. Security was doing random sweeps and found it in April. They were furious. We figured we'd just save it for the next party. No, it had to be consumed the same day or removed. They wanted to fine someone for each day that it was in the building. The guy who brought it didn't even have access to the document room, but he took the blame. Then he retired the next week and security dropped it. I've got way more. Want to slide a desk across the room? Can't. That is violating union rules and taking work away from the facilities team. You have to call and schedule the movers. Then they charge you for it. Oh, tolerance for violence. I got punished for being beaten up along with the kids who did it to me. I then questioned the stupidity of this rule and was told it was in our best interests. Then, being the smart-ass cunt that I was, I asked if I started to fight a teacher. Would they get in trouble as well as me, and was then punished for threatening the teacher. School was not a good time for me. When I was in school, we weren't allowed to play the scarf game. What's the scarf game, I hear you say? The scarf game involves wrapping a scarf around your neck and pulling it until you pass out. No one in the entire school knew what the scarf game was until a useless teacher came in, explained to us how to play in brilliant detail, then made us sign that we would not play it. In middle school, they gave you little organizers called agendas. You pretty much needed it for everything: school ID, hall passes, schedules, and homework. In 8th grade, they decided that the word agenda had some kind of vocabulary clash with middle schoolers, or some shit like that. The main point is that they started calling them agenda books. They were pretty serious about this new switch. If you ask a teacher to sign a pass in your agenda, they'd completely ignore you until you called it an agenda book. Not at my job, but my dad has a great story. At my dad's old construction job, they had one of those X days since an accident calendars. However, an accident was defined as an injury that caused an employee to miss work. One of my dad's coworkers fell off the roof of the building and died. They didn't reset the calendar because he technically didn't miss any work. In the Army, you are not allowed to walk on the grass. You can do PT on the grass, unpack your gear on the grass, but dear God, whatever you do, don't walk on the grass. I know it makes no damn sense to me either. Our company recently instituted a cost-cutting measure that requires spouses who are eligible for insurance through their company to do so. Saves the company what? $3K annually for some married employees? One of our IT guys complained vociferously about it because his wife's company had shitty insurance with a ridiculous deductible, and threatened to quit if they didn't allow his wife back on the policy. HR says they won't grant an exception for him, and his boss ended up giving him a $10K/year raise to make sure he didn't leave. Way to save the company some money. I remember my high school had a no visible shoulder as it was deemed too provocative. While they also had policies on length of shorts and no exposed midriff, this was the only one enforced for some reason. As a protest, some students put together a porn magazine called Shoulders, featuring seductive pictures of shoulders. At my former job, we weren't allowed to grow facial hair, so we were allowed to either have no facial hair at all or have a fully grown mustache. Our manager told us if we wanted to have a mustache, we would have to go on vacation, grow a stash, and come back from our vacation with a fully grown mustache. So on the next day, we all showed up wearing fake mustaches. I used to work in a government department, and people used to keep snacks on their desk while working because we're human. The employer implemented lean working, so every desk had to be totally empty, except for select items that had to be arranged in a certain way. Pens had to be to the upper left of the keyboard, I think. This rule forbid food items but allowed one personal item. One staff member had a banana in a banana case as her personal item. She was told to put it away. She refused and took it further until it was ruled that because she wasn't eating it and the skin hadn't been broken, it was an inactive banana, and thus a personal item. It only became active during the act of eating, at which point it became food. No other food had an inactive state, only bananas. No one in high school was allowed to utter the phrase tutti frutti. When I first started high school, we had this young substitute teacher fresh out of college take a class. I don't know who it was or how it happened, he just became known as Mr. Tutti Frutti. No one even remembered his real name after a while. He was just Tutti Frutti. He laughed it off the first time. The second time he chuckled, but everyone noticed that minuscule twitch in his eye. Jump ahead 2 or 3 years and he's a full-time teacher. The name has become cemented into the student mindset, so much so that younger grades know him as Tutti Frutti, so that even when he introduces himself each year, his real name is instantly forgotten. Even other teachers were known to call him Tutti Frutti. He never says anything, until one day he just snapped. A girl asked Tutti Frutti a question. He just stood up, looked her in the eye, and screamed, "I am not Tutti Frutti." Then he threw a chair through the window and left. We weren't allowed to mention Tutti Frutti after.